Hi everyone. So this is Anvita and from DataMinds, and in this video we will be looking at what is Docker. So to look at what is Docker, we need to know what is a virtual machine and also what is a container and why do we need these things, right? So before we started with the concept of a virtual machine, how were we running and deploying all of our codes or apps? Let's say you have a certain .py app that you want to run. Okay, so how would you run it or deploy it? You would have a hardware, right? You would have a hardware and you will have an operating system. And on this operating system, using the resources of this operating system, you are going to run the app. Of course, if you need any other software or dependencies to run it, you are going to install that on the hardware and the OS, right? And that is how you are going to run this application, right? And let's say it needs around XGB of memory to run. So what if you have something less than, let's say this is 20 GB of space this application needs to run. And what if you have less than this amount? So one thing you can do is upgrade to a better hardware, but of course that is something that is going to be expensive. So then comes the concept of a virtual machine. Right? So what is a virtual machine going to do? So let's say you have your hardware, okay, and you have your operating system, and then there is going to be something called as a hypervisor. So what the hypervisor is going to do, it's going to create an interface so that we have ease in dividing resources and building virtual machines. So let's say there are 2 to 3 virtual machines. Okay, and each has a different set of resources. Let's say this has 22 GB space, and now my application can run on it. So virtual machines are something that will have allocated resources and they are going to sit on our hardware. They will have a part of the operating system, not the whole operating system, right? And they require a huge start time or boot time. Why? Because the whole of the OS is loading. Another thing with virtual machines is that they cannot share resources. So if I run a 20 GB application here, then my 2 GB is going to be wasted unless I utilize it for some other purpose, it is going to be wasted, right? But using this, I can solve the problem that if I don't want to run something on my hardware or I don't have enough resources to run it on my hardware, I can run it on an instance of a virtual machine. So we are going to look at the virtual machine first, right? And then come to container and what is Docker. So before that, as you can see, if you have a virtual machine which has, let's say, 30 GB memory and only 25 GB is utilized, you can see in yellow it is marked that 5 GB is going to be wasted. So why does that happen? Because one virtual machine is isolated from the other and you cannot share resources among the virtual machines, right? Another thing is that, of course, virtual machines will run on either of your hardware, right? What is that called? It's called being cross-platform or platform independent, right? So on any OS you are, it doesn't matter because your virtual machine is not running on the OS that is on your hardware. So they are independent of the hardware or the platform, right? So hardware independence. And as you can see, they will have a slower startup time because they will take time to load the operating system of the virtual machine, right? And as you can see, they are not going to be able to share resources, right? So here in this slide, you are seeing virtual machine versus Docker or versus a container. And I will be telling you shortly what is a container and how these things are changing in a container, right? So we are going to be looking at how these things are changing in a container and what is a container in the next video.